Hey, this is Miss HL, and this is the second of the Lithosphere videos. This is about plate tectonics. You will use this information and the information from the PowerPoint in order to fill out your notes and study guide. Remember that the question here corresponds with the question on the PowerPoint and on the notes, and you will put your answer here. There are hints underneath the question to help you with the ones that have multiple slides of information. In this case, you only would need to write down the 3 types of faults. The notes look like this, and remember that they match, they correspond with the question. They can be found on Blackboard. Now, all about plate tectonics. This picture is of molten lava because it's the molten magma that is below the Earth's surface that actually causes the plates to move. What forces are created by plate movements? It's stress. Not stress like, oh my gosh, I'm worried about my test. The stress of the force that acts on rocks to change. There are 3 types of stress: tension, compression, and shearing. When stress occurs, we end up with cracks in the earth, and these cracks are called faults or fault lines. There are 3 types. You have the normal fault, a reverse fault, and a strike-slip fault. How do the plates move? The main reason is convection currents. These currents are within the mantle, and as they move, they cause the asthenosphere to move around the molten layer, and the plates float on top of it. Also, the density of the layers of the earth actually causes some of this. Because the middle inner core is the most dense, it is in the middle of the earth. All the layers formed around it based on their density. You can go to the URL listed here at YouTube to see a great video on plate tectonics. Or click on the purple letters to go directly to it from the PowerPoint. How do the plates move? Well, there's 3 types of movement. You have translating, and that's when they're sliding back and forth, rubbing against each other. You have spreading, and that's when the 2 plates move apart from each other, and magma rises up in the middle and causes new crust to form. And the 3rd way is subduction, and that is when one plate slides underneath or subducts underneath of another plate, and that old crust goes away as it's destroyed and turns into magma below the Earth's surface. Here is a more simple version of the movement of the plates. The arrows show you the direction they're moving. A divergent is when they dive apart and spread. A convergent boundary is when they push together and subduct. And a transform boundary is when they translate, sliding back and forth side by side. What is subduction and where does it occur? Use this slide to get the information about subduction for your study guide. This question is written down twice on your study guide. The second box is for you to use to put an illustration. Here are examples of subduction. One is when you have 2 continental crusts ramming into each other and a mountain range forms. The second is when it's oceanic crust, and that's still crust, but oceans on top of it, ramming against the continental crust. What is spreading and where does it occur? Use this information to fill out your question on your study guide. Remember, spreading causes new crust to form. Here is a picture of spreading for your study guide. Translation. This is when the boundaries are rubbing side by side. The crusts are rubbing side by side. San Andreas Fault in California is a transform boundary. That's why a lot of earthquakes occur there. Use this information for your study guide. And here's a diagram for you to use for your study guide for translation. This is where the plates are located on the Earth. You can see the Pacific Plate is completely rimmed with all kinds of boundaries where plate movement's occurring. Down in the middle between the North American plate and the Eurasian plate is actually a divergent boundary. They say that the two plates are moving apart about an inch a year. Use these pictures for your diagrams, for your study guide.